Okay, picture this. You're an 8-foot tall, steroided out superhuman in power armor, carrying a weapon that fires basically anti-aircraft ammunition. And every day, you have to fight against every single alien race in the entire universe because they're trying to invade Earth. That is basically the story behind Warhammer 40k. So, unsurprisingly, when you have a concept like that, you're going to have video games based off of your little universe you have there, more than just those little figurine things that cost $40 million to accumulate an army of. We're going to be taking a look at 2 of those games. One is good, but very, very flawed, and I'll be talking in depth about those flaws as we cover it. The other one is very good and very fun, but it is a kind of a Gears clone, but it does a lot of things better than Gears. First one is Space Hulk. So Space Hulk is a very good-looking game that it works technically. There's a lot to like about it and a lot not to like about it. It's definitely the lesser of the 2 games I'm going to be talking about today. Just for a couple reasons. I actually, just in general, I like the concept more than the other game, but it just doesn't pull it off in a few ways. And one of the ways is, I guess I'll just talk about the good things about it real quick. The look. It just looks great. And you can tell because it's like 50 gigs to download it. And all the enemies are cool looking. Just the amount of enemies that can attack you at once is pretty overwhelming. And that's kind of a running theme here. And just the mechanized suits are great looking. And there's a bunch of different skins for them. And they look great. And just the feeling of walking around, the sound design, everything feels really just meaty and clunky. And clunky in a good way. In the way that, giant power suits are supposed to feel. And when you look around, you can get, the top of your helmet. If you look up, you can see, the cuirass, I guess, of the armor. When you look around, it's very, very neat. The shooting of the guns feel very good. So do the powers, like lightning. I've only unlocked the lightning power. That's about the extent of it, and then the force blast. I think those actually come when you start the game. But yeah, there's a little zoom in thing so you can see what's out in the distance. Although it doesn't feel very interesting just because you don't have the gun in your sight. But you're not supposed to. But that's just because Space Marines don't have to use sights because they're just inherently, I guess, the best hip firers or something. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% a genius. Oh, one of the guys just died there. That's another problem with the game, is that your guys can be taking no hits for the longest time, and then all of a sudden they stop and then die instantly. And I'm not sure what the technicality. I think I'm playing on hard mode, as I do on most games. There was the little loadout screen there. I'm not sure what the issue is. Maybe if I turn down the difficulty or something, they wouldn't suck so bad. But there's many times where it's been just me fighting against the hordes because the other 2 idiots. Look, he died again. So I'm not sure what to do. It's almost always Barricale. Brother Barricale has fallen, or whatever. Brother Barricale got yeeted by monsters again because he wasn't moving backwards. So it's usually just me and the medic here, which I'm much better with because he heals. He can heal me, and I'm glad he's not a moron who dies instantly. A lot of the objectives aren't particularly interesting. It's usually go here, press button, and then leave. Destroy something, or escort a little robot with a skull on it, so that or survive. Survive in a certain particular location. That's the main campaign of this so far. I think I've only played 2 missions, but there's also breakable walls too. I guess that weren't really. You don't really know to break them. I guess it's kind of odd. Like they just kind of throw them in the second level. But yeah, I mean it's a stylistically, it's a great game. Just from the look of it. But the main problem is the load times. The load times are so long that it takes all the fun out of the game that you can have. Not all of it, but it really is a shit thing to go through. I timed it, and it took 2.5 minutes from clicking start button on Steam to get to the main menu, and then another minute to get into a level. They're ridiculous load times for a modern game. And see how that guy spawned in and then instantly died? That just happens sometimes. I'm not sure what it is, but whatever. But yeah, the load times are completely ridiculous. I don't know what else to, that's the main flaw of the game. But, when it comes down to it, you'll get sections where you're gunning it through, these really cool, like, cathedral-esque corridors. It has the Warhammer universe has a really interesting, theme and like style and design that everything kind of clicks. Plus, you get horrific frame drops like that. And audio, if you can tell, I'm sure the audio has been cutting out, ridiculous amounts during the entire playthrough. Just audio, like clipping, where you hear it go, and it just really kind of takes you out of it. So guys, sometimes graphics, although cool, aren't everything. It's a bummer that the game has such shitty compatibility. I mean, I've been playing with this PC games like Grand Theft Auto 5 and like the new Doom game that came out and ran perfectly. I feel like compatibility, if you're gonna go for a graphics heavy game, compatibility needs to be first and foremost, and then work out but even then, graphics aren't the what should be the focus of the game, because basically, if you're looking at it, it's Left 4 Dead. It's a Left 4 Dead. There aren't a whole lot of things to do. It gets very repetitive, very fast. There aren't many guns to play around with. That when you're playing single player, you can only play as the librarian, right? Unless you do the special missions. And usually I'm just walking around with a bolter. And the bolter is a great gun, but it's just, it's one gun throughout the whole thing. I want to be able to switch it up mid-game, because what you do is you can carry around one gun, and then you have a few amount of teleports using side gates to go to the loadout screen, and maybe change your gun there. But you can only carry one gun at a time and maybe a melee weapon, and that's it. And it doesn't work. You need to be able to switch your weapons out faster than that. But that's pretty much everything about Warhammer. Or no, what is this called? Space Hulk Deathwing. There's a little level up system, little cosmetic system, but it looks great. It sounds great, but I mean, besides the audio and frame drops, but it's a decent game, and I guess I wouldn't recommend it for the horrific loading times, but it is a decent game for what it is. If you're a big Warhammer fan, then I guess I recommend it, but anybody else I wouldn't, because just because of the loading times and the install and everything. So yeah. On to the next game. Warhammer 40k Space Marine is a third-person shooter that came out in sometime. Hold on a second. Warhammer 40k Space Marine came out in 2011, and you can definitely tell because it basically Gears of War. It basically has the same exact feel as that game, except there's a few key differences, and the main thing is the melee combat. It has a few different melee weapons you can use, which is binding to the right clicker, and it's a kind of a free-form going in and out of ranged and melee combat, which, in Gears you hold the B button or something and then you chainsaw a guy maybe, or you press it and then you hit someone. This is really centered around the melee system primarily. I mean, you have like the bolter, you have the sniper, you have the rocket launcher, you have the pistol, and they all work very well. They definitely have a great feel to them. But it's basically just, you are a badass space marine slaughtering orcs by the hundreds. And there is, like a real feel of like a horde coming at you. The same feeling as Space Hulk had, except the load times are maybe 10 seconds max to get into a game. If you die, it takes 10 seconds to get back to a checkpoint that was right before then. Whereas in Space Hulk, you die, you wait a minute, and you start the level again or something if you didn't put down one of those things. Or if you didn't get far enough to get to a respawn point. Or a checkpoint, I mean. But yeah, I mean, this one has a much lighter tone. It's much more beautiful looking, just with the skyboxes and the look of everything around. It has a better feel. Definitely the graphics are not as great, but it doesn't really matter to me if I can play the game, within 10 seconds. The main character is voiced by Mark Strong, I think, who's a great actor. He played the bald guy in The Kingsman, and the bald guy in a bunch of other things, because he's bald. And but he does a great job here. Everything is much more illegible. And it's kind of in plain English, as opposed to Space Hulk, which goes kind of the regular 40k route, where everything's Latin and hard to understand if you're a dumb person like me. But it really has a much more welcoming feel. It's a better starting point for, people who don't know what Warhammer is, or people who haven't, been into it for long, like me. I'm just kind of getting into the universe right now, reading about it. But, it's kind of an intimidating thing, but it's a fun game, to play. It's a fun game. There's some great moments where, you get the jump pack or whatever, and you jump around and you just fly down onto orcs and watch them explode. Or you press the Fury button, which is your little power-up thing, and you go into slow motion and headshot a bunch of orcs. Or you go into Fury mode with like a battle axe or your chainsaw sword, and you just slaughter groups of orcs in the dozens of, them running at you. There's a good kind of sense of of kind of a horde feeling, but a genuine horde, where you can see them all coming at you, and you're like, oh shit, how am I going to deal with this? It pulls it off a lot better than Space Hulk, just because, you know, you get that sense of, you know, scale in these battles. Just when, you know, you have like 15 orcs running at you from one side and 20 coming right at you from the front, 15 from the other side, like in one of these little things I'll probably put up here at some point. Very, very well done and very fun, and you really feel like a badass. But it doesn't have the horror feeling that Space Hulk does, that I was kind of attracted to in the first place. Space Hulk, you're very, like, it's dark corridors, there's monsters, you know, Tyranids, I think they're called. Tyranids coming at you, you know, from the dark, you know, you see the little blips on your map and stuff, and, you know, it pulls off that horror feeling where, yeah, you're a giant badass in a Terminator suit, but you're still gonna get killed by just hordes of these things, you know? And plus the kind of alien nature of the way that people talk, and the hostile environment is, I guess, you know, which I guess is more in tone with the 40k universe in general, is pulled off a lot better in Space Hulk. But when it comes to playing as a Space Marine and having a fluid game experience where all the weapons feel balanced and everything is just more fun in general, and it makes you feel like you're a giant badass in like Space Marine armor with giant guns that make heads explode, you know. There's a point where there's a bunch of red barrels and you shoot it and it goes boom and everything around it dies. And I really liked that moment. That's something that's not in Space Hulk. But it's generally a more entertaining experience, though not as hostile as I would like. If it weren't for the loading times, I would say I liked Space Hulk better. But it's just those loading times are so killer, it ruins the experience, for me at least. I really wish that they weren't a minute long loading times. But Space Hulk, I mean not Space Hulk, Space Marine so far is really, you know, giving me the fix I want for the Warhammer feel in general. Plus I like the blue guys. You can't play as the blue guys in Space Hulk unless you play as the Librarian, I guess. But I think you're technically playing as a different chapter or something of the Space... It's the Deathwing chapter, pretty sure. I'm not a fucking nerd. I don't know Warhammer. I just like giant Space Marines fighting aliens. That's the extent of my sci-fi, you know, attraction. I like Starship Troopers, I like Space Marines, and I like Aliens Colonial Marines. The concept, not that game. That game's not great. I like, you know, Starship Troopers. I think I already said that. Yeah, I mean, just Space Marines going against aliens is what I like in sci-fi. Clone Wars. I don't like Star Wars. I think the Jedis are fucking stupid. But the universe is cool, and I like Clone Troopers. That's the extent of it. I don't like those movies. Those movies are bad. But, yeah, I mean, Space Marine, Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine, it's a fun game. It's very fun. It really nails the feeling that I wanted to feel. I wanted to play as a blue Space Marine guy that, you know... I'm a normie, I guess, because I like the blue ones, because they look the coolest. But that's what I've been looking for. I really wish that Space Hulk had shorter loading times, because that would be, you know, and you could play as a blue guy. If you play as a blue guy in Space Hulk, and you cut the loading times down 75%, then I would prefer it. That's about it, when it comes to those games. So yeah. thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed me rambling for 20 minutes about fucking motorcycle. I hope you enjoyed me rambling 20 minutes about Warhammer games. So yeah, thank you.